All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September 24th, 2025 meeting of the Halifax Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll have the land acknowledgement. So the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Community announcements. Any community announcements?
Sure, I'll
Commissioner
jump in.
Mancini.
Good afternoon, everyone. I look at this crowd, and I know many of you are going to attend, including the two chiefs. Tomorrow is the annual Deputy Mayor bike ride in Dartmouth. So we'd love to have you all show up on your bikes. 3 o'clock at Graham's Grove. We're going to bike to Shuby Park to the pump track, and then meet the kids from Michael Wallace Elementary School, and then we're going to bike back to Graham's Grove, and some of my colleagues are going to flip burgers, and we're going to have some ice cream, and I'll just celebrate active transportation living. So I invite everyone here today. No, we'll call it. We have a rain date. If it does rain, right now it's calling for a little misting, but dark Bouthians are tough. We can have a little misting. So there's my announcement.
Thank you. Any other community announcements? Seeing none, I neglected to introduce our solicitor for today, Chris Giddens. He's joining us. We want to welcome him. Moving on to, Commissioner Hinch.
Since we're promoting ourselves out here. Tomorrow evening, I have my participatory budget at the Halifax Forum, the Halifax Hall, or the Maritime Hall, from 6 till 8. So I hope the community gets out and supports and help vote on some of the projects that the community has planned. So yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other community announcements? All right. Moving on to approval of the minutes, which are none. Approval of the order of business. Are there any additions or deletions for the order of business?
Chair O'Malley, there are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any additions or deletions for today's business?
Mr. Chair, I have one. It's for next week.
Okay, it's next week, never mind.
Thank you. So we need a motion to approve the order of business. Commissioner Vincent Ezek Esquinlar and Vice Chair Kent. Thank you both kindly. All those in favor of that? All those against? Motion carried. No business arising out of previous minutes for this meeting. Call for declaration of conflicts of interest. Commissioners, does anyone have any conflict of interest to declare as a result of any item on today's agenda? All right, thank you kindly. Seeing none, we will proceed. And I see that there's no consideration for deferred business. Correspondence. Madam Clerk, is there any correspondence that we've received that needs to be shared?
Chair O'Malley, there was no correspondence circulated for this meeting.
Thank you kindly. Are there any petitions that we wanted to make note of or share?
There's no petitions from the clerk's office.
Thank you. And then no scheduled presentations. And information brought forward, none. So we're getting right into number 10. So reports and discussion. So item 10.1.1 is the Halifax Regional Police 26-27 Service Enhancements presentation. Chief McLean, will you be leading that presentation? Yeah. Thank you, sir. Floor is yours.
Just wait till it pops up. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone, and everyone that's watching online. So today we'll start our first foray into the world of discussing the budget. And today I'll be giving a relatively high-level overview of our 26-27 budget and business planning process for Halifax Regional Police. Obviously, this is a slide which, well, you'll get to see it many times over the next little bit, but in terms of, this is our mission, and as you all know here, our policing model, geography, and jurisdiction of the 3 patrol divisions of which we are responsible for. Also, a slide you will probably see on every budget presentation going forward now until the end of, certainly probably the end of time, actually, in terms of recognizing the the vibrancy and the diverse municipality of which we are experiencing some extraordinary population growth in the last few years. We see, it's interesting to see how it's actually dipped down, for 2024, but that's still 10,000 people. So it gives a sense of, the population growth. So our estimated population in 2024 was actually just over 503,000 people. And that's just in the context of, as we have these discussions. So our current employee strength is sworn members of 564, civilian of 210, I should say, for a total of 774 current authorized strength. Our current operating budget for this year, which would have been the one that would have been approved, last year in the budget process, just over 100 million, 101,255,000, which is set by compensation costs of 104, another almost 10 in non-compensation operating costs, and then offset by revenue recoveries at $13.5 million. Again, none of this information will be new to the board, as neither will this. But I think it's important to put things like in the context of what we did come to last year in terms of our budget highlights. We approved 17 new positions last year as part of the budget. 2 victim service caseworkers, the culture and support manager, the forensic media specialist, the auditor position, quartermaster, the AA for the police science program, the DEMS, which is the digital evidence management system, which is tied to the body worn camera supervisor, and the DEMS clerks. Also, of course, the armored rescue vehicle was approved as part of the capital budget process. All of those positions are in some type, because they were staggered as when they would start over the year. Many of them were new positions, so there's a bit of negotiation that has to undergo in terms of establishing salaries and that bit, but they're all in flight somewhere along the way. And for this year, you'll see from the slide, we're working closely with our finance and asset management business unit. A few of them who are here today to develop the framework for the 26-27 budget. And again, not a new concept that, the things that take into place. We have contractual related pressures in the area of compensation, collective agreements. You'll notice actually not many of my team are here today. They're actually all in conciliation with HRPA today. Leases around our facilities, external service providers, the evolving pressures related to the delivery of service in areas of accountability, safety, demographics, adjustments to revenue, cost opportunities, transfers to other business units to align budgets. So that last year, but we made a specific move around the STU unit, our technology moved over to ICT. So that just puts us in a bit of the framework of where we're at. So from a comparative process, for 2026-27, no service enhancements, just current operating budget, current business the way we do now would see a $2.3 million increase of 2.3%, which is related basically to the revenue compensation costs, non-compensation costs. So that's no service enhancement. That's just continuing what we've done for the last year. So for this budget and our proposed service enhancements, we are proposing the following, which is 8 full-time employees, emergency response communicators, that are the positions within the emergency services, IES, and they are responsible for answering the 911 calls, gathering the information from callers, and connecting citizens to the emergency services they require. I'm sure it's no surprise to you in terms of what they do. If you've never had a chance to go over and see them do their work, because actually I would recommend everyone get that opportunity at some point to go over. And obviously they are a vital part of our organization. Because one of the things I want to say is, while they reside in my budget, they are in fact public safety personnel. They dispatch the RCMP, they dispatch fire. I'm sure they'll have some involvement in new community service piece, but they do reside in my budget. We've made increases in our fire personnel. We've made increases in police personnel. We haven't made increases to the people that actually dispatch and take the information in. I think that's, just like last year I spoke about enhancing a big chunk of our civilian population to support the work that our sworn members do. This is another, I guess, an extension of that same sort of request as we move forward. Like I said, they're not just a benefit to police, but all the public safety agencies. The IAS supervisors are trained and responsible for issuing all the alert ready messages. I know we're going to have a presentation on that next week, but I think we're in the place that will probably take over the entire alert ready infrastructure for HRM, and as well as, and then it's just a simple case of, required to complement the existing staffing levels and meet demand. That is one of the few areas in our organization where we actually have a mandatory overtime sort of process put into place. And in terms of, aside from the financial piece of that, there's also the piece on the wellness, I think, of our members in terms of ensuring that that work is more evenly spread out amongst everyone. So from a budget preparation framework, that would increase the budget to, as you see here, the proposed service enhancements of $392,000 for the next year. In terms, again, that's built on a staggered starting date in terms of, I would guess that's probably half, right? Yeah. In terms of, that's probably half for the entire year. What we'll see as we move over to the next slide is the actual budget implications over a 4-year period. I'll let everyone take a look at that in terms, rather than me fumbling all over the numbers, but so for, after 4+ years, a total for 8 full-time emergency response communicators is $936,000, but again, that's over 4 years. Would you like to leave that up for a few minutes if you're taking any sort of notes, or you're fine? Or we can always come back to it if you have questions. And then I just want to take a quick, and that is the extent of our ask for this year in terms of our service enhancements. In terms of, I want to stress that for me, this is a public safety service enhancement that extends the entirety of HRM. Including with my partners that are sitting here, certainly fire and community safety. But I want to take a quick year in review over the last year to put things in perspective. As we know, we graduated 22 recruits back in June. They've all were hired as constables. Happy to say that within a month's time, I'll be starting, I believe it's the 20th, I think, of October. I'll be starting up our next class. I'm told as today we're right around that 40 number, and they're still working on it. So that's actually, that's a win for us. We continue our experienced police officer recruitment. I hired 6 between now and the beginning of the year. I believe I have another 2 or 3 scheduled within the next month. And from our police science program, diversity training program, we now undergo a 2.5-week diversity training program, which we sit at the beginning of our police science program. Also, some other things you would have seen, our Rainbow Internal Support Network, the RISN, they've been doing some great work. They hosted the 2nd annual Pride Parade barbecue during Pride Parade. I believe you dropped by there, Commissioner. Yeah, it was a great day, and we've worked with fire around food drives and open house, Feed Nova Scotia. Involved in many things over the year. Police Day, Polar Plunge, Camp Courage. This weekend, actually, from a service analysis piece, is the Special Olympics goes on Saturday, which will have a big involvement in that as well. So these are just some of the things we do on an ongoing annual basis. Moving forward, our key priorities, my key priorities, still recruitment and retention, member wellness, employee engagement, which is a huge. We'll be holding a symposium within the next few weeks around wellness, I said our members are in conciliation today. Collective agreement, HRPA is obviously a priority that we're working on right now. Operational readiness that speaks to our ability to be able to respond to things that occur in the community, be able to. This weekend, it's interesting, my first year here and the ones before this time of year, everyone was hyped up about homecoming and now it's still a reality, but I think we're much better. We're in a much better position to respond, and it hasn't taken over the headlines like it used to at one particular point, but that speaks to operational readiness. Our community partnerships about continuing to work with the community. Wortley report, especially around race-based data initiatives that are in place, that will be in place. And then moving forward, like I said, our continuous police science program, our ability to move quickly on that, experienced police officer recruitment, which is ongoing at all times. The early intervention program, which is about, which came from a budget request through ICT last year, which is about, our ability to respond to triggers and wellness about people in the workforce. And it's a software-based program around supplement employee wellness and mental health, employee engagement. Again, the policy refresh and the release of our policies, which are ongoing. Interpretation services, again, which was a part of our budget last year around the ability. It's such a growing, and that's on-demand, real-time interpretive services in terms of such a growing diverse community in terms of the times of trying to find someone that speaks a certain language, which in the force just is not a reality anymore. You have to be more proactive in that regard. And certainly, last but not least, the whole DEMS, digital evidence management system, body-worn cameras, in-car cameras, which I'll speak to. So this just gives us a kind of update of where that stands right now. The IT project has been stood up. We have full-time IT resources, which I think has been a benefit from our merge into ICT. Project managers, change manager, business analyst. The key roles around comms and policy. We're still in a bit of a procurement sort of process right now, which will obviously procurement will then drive some of the issues around what policy and what kind of the equipment can deliver and some of those other things. But obviously, I think we've been out in front, I know the board's been out in front around some of the policy initiatives and some of the overarching framework. I think that's important. We're in the middle right now of actually hiring our DEM supervisor. I believe the interviews are supposed to take place within the next few weeks. And then we'll be getting into the clerk positions, which will be in the next few months as well. So our next steps obviously are the public participation, which is set to go on October 6th. And I think, this presentation, again, at a high level, but provides enough, I think, of the information to give a sense of where I want to go. And certainly then, we'll be back at the end of October with actually a more detailed sort of in-depth draft of our operating budget and the line items and the package that the board has basically become to be familiar with over the last couple of years in terms of indicating what our budget presentation is going to be. And so there we go. Relatively high level, relatively quick, John.
Chief, could I ask you to bring the previous slide back up, or Madam Clerk? So Vice Chair Kent reminded me we should give a little context for today. So today is about presentations only. There's no motion around a budget ask. This is about describing the service enhancements. The Monday event will be the opportunity for the public to share their comments, their thinking around the budget ask increases, or current budgets. And then it's not until later in October, the 29th, when the actual detailed budget will be submitted to the board, and there'll be a discussion and motions around that with a possible alternate date as well. So just to provide some context. All right, I guess we'll open the floor up to questions. Commissioner Mancini, you want to start?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thank you as always. Interesting, last year there was 17 new positions that are approved, and there was no sworn officers as part of that. So I have a bunch of questions. Starting off with the 8 new full-time, the 911 operators. And it's interesting. So it services RCMP and fire, right? That
Yes.
service. So why does it sit in your budget? So is that historically, it's always been that way? Because I now, since it's covering other emergency services, should it sit in your budget? As I'm looking at, right? Because, because you're covering all, right? And what is the budget for that, for just that department, that team overall? Do you know offhand?
I'd have to,
Okay,
I'd
I'll
have
look
to
it
be
up.
great to look
Yep.
at, but I think a couple things. A, historically, it's been held within policing. Like when I joined the police department, in terms of pre-amalgamation, our dispatchers worked in 1975 Gosden Street, and then after amalgamation, they went over to the Spicer Building where they
Right.
currently still reside. They are HRPA employees, which are, from a union perspective. So that's where they've been, and that's
Okay.
where they've been for quite some time. What does that look like in the future? Can't really say. I know we've had some, very preliminary discussions about, they are public safety, personnel. The bulk of their work is probably in the police sphere, in terms of, certainly from our perspective, and the RCMPs, they do the fire dispatch as well. Like I say, we'll see, like I said, with the involvement of the community safety program at some point, we'll see what their level of involvement is as well. But like I said, this is not just, this is not just an HRP benefit. I think this is an
Right.
HRM.
And
Public
that's the
safety
reason why I
benefit.
asked is sitting in the right place. I don't know. Is it better suited somewhere else?
But I also don't want to say, for those who are sitting over there that may be watching it, like tomorrow, all of a sudden, they're not going to be an HRP.
Right.
That, not saying that in any
No.
way whatsoever, but the recognition that they do serve beyond just, police.
And
Maybe
so
I could interject, maybe
Sure.
Commissioner would like to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, through to the commission. I guess the good news of being around here long enough is that I can be the historian for this. So Integrated Emergency Services came about in early 2004. There was the new CAD RMS project was coming online. There was a new digital radio project coming online. There was the desire to build a new communication center coming online. I was actually seconded from police to the CAO's office and given all those projects. And out of that came the idea of having a consolidated dispatch center and having all those disparate projects brought together. There was a standalone business unit called Integrated Emergency Services. It was a standalone. I was the first director for that business unit, and that was up and running to provide service 911 and both non-emergency and emergency call taking for regional police. There was discussion with Halifax District, and they came online. There was an offset in our provincial policing costs because of the OCC costs that HRM used to pay. That money moved. We didn't pay that money any longer in relation to that. That continues today. And I worked in that role. And then at some point I was going back, and the decision was made by the administration at that time to take that and stop it being a standalone business unit. One of the reasons it was in police, not the primary, but one of the reasons is the ability to have connections to CPIC. So for the dispatchers to have connections to the Canadian Police Information Center,
Right.
there needs to be,
And
this is necessary, but it's much easier through a policing agency. So that's some of the background from there. And as a result of that, then it was placed in under police, and it's been there to this date. And that's the history of how it arrived there.
I guess at some point in time, is worth the conversation to say, just to confirm, is that still the best place for it? I don't know. I just asked that. But going back to, thank you for that, Bill. Going back to your request for 8 full-time employees, so is that a volume issue? Is that why you're asking for additional 8? Have you lost bodies? Can you explain that a little bit, Chief?
Yeah, if we had the managers here in terms of, they would tell you, like, say, there is a minimum staffing complement within IES that requires so many, basically, seats filled at a particular time. The reality is, over the last number of years, that has only been able to be accomplished through, like I say, mandatory overtime. And what I mean by mandatory overtime is basically it's overtime that is already scheduled for folks to make it easier in terms of ensuring someone's there. Because the reality is those seats can't be empty in terms of,
Right.
the call volume per se hasn't gone up significantly in terms, it will continue to go up, as we grow and all those other things, but certainly, servicing more, but it's not just police calls, it's fire calls, it's everything else, right? But like I say, in terms of, we've had part-time, a part-time model there for a number of years to help offset it. The reality is if you're part-time, you end up working full, you're in
Right.
all intents and purposes, you're full-time, at the end of the day, in terms of, it's a busy spot. Like, in terms of, there's a supervisor model in there that really, they don't get enough chance to actually supervise in terms because they're spending so much time actually doing the work that's required, when people need to take, because still the people that are there still get their vacation, still get the, take their lunch breaks and all the other stuff in terms of, so it's trying to put and it probably won't solve the entirety of the problem, but it'll start moving in a better direction towards establishing some level of, stabilization in terms of some of those issues around, because there's close to 80, I'd say roughly around 80 bodies. Like, that's not the exact number, but they run on the 4-watch system as well.
Right.
So,
thank you, Chief, Mr. Chair, for commissioners who have not visited that center, maybe it's an opportunity that we can do something for them. It's very impressive work that they do there. Highly qualified, very efficient, just to witness what happens and which takes place there. It's critical work. So thank you. How am I doing for timing, Mop? Or
Maybe we'll,
go, and I'll come back to that.
okay, thank you. Just for clarity, with 8 resources, that's basically providing one resource
Two-
on the
two-
floor,
two-
24/7,
Yeah,
365 days a year.
it would be 2 per shift.
2 per shift?
4 shifts, 8.
But aren't they
times 2.
4 days on, 4 days off?
No, they go by the watch. So they would go by. They would go on. They go 4 on, 4 off, but they work the same watch model as. So there's 4 watches.
Right.
So it would be 2 bodies for each watch.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Commissioner Kent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief. Couple of questions on this. So we went through what we approved last year. Can you give me an update on how you feel those impacts have been felt?
Oh, so yes. So to the council in terms of, so again, they were staggered as well. So they didn't begin right away in terms of, and because a lot of them are actually new. So the admin assistant for police science programs up and running in terms of helping establish the next.
Yeah.
A lot of these positions were actually though new positions.
Okay.
They require, job descriptions. Then they require
Set up.
discussions around inclusion or exclusion as to whether they're in the union, whether they're not. Then it's about what union are you actually in terms of once you get to it. Then you get into salary negotiations and all those other stuff. So they're all in flight to some degree. But we all knew it was going to take. That's why they were staggered to the beginning, like at least halfway through the year, because we knew they weren't going to start right off the go. So in terms, like I say, so the DEM supervisor, that, like I say, that interview was in the next couple of weeks. The clerks will be shortly thereafter. So all of them are in some level of flight, but they all will have certainly an impact on what it is we want to do.
Didn't we have some patrol positions
last
too?
year, no.
Not last year. It was.
No, there were no sworn
Okay.
officers last year.
All right. So another question on certainly I appreciate that you have identified dispatch for some resourcing. They do a vital job and they do a difficult job. And we expect them to manage a lot of things at the same time that is just key to service delivery. So I appreciate that's what's coming forward this year. What I'd like a better understanding, and I think Commissioner Bill, your description of the standalone to now what we have, standalone, it sounded like standalone received some funding or it was supplemented. My question is, I know that there are, this is utilized by RCMP as well, but it's in your budget. And I know that the or at least I understand that the dispatch is also the backup for the provincial-wide system. Am I right on that? That's how I understood it. That so if the provincial system is at capacity and people are still dialing into 911, it's overflowing into this dispatch. So what are we receiving any compensation from the province on that? And if that is that solid enough?
There is a mechanism in terms of where there are cost recoveries in relation to IES. I can't tell you what, Craig may know what the exact numbers are. I'm sure he would. But, I don't know.
Commissioner Moore, would you like to add it? But I would think it's reciprocal too, because you would get call overflow from your center to other centers
Correct.
as well.
Okay.
Commissioners,
Moore.
Chair, through to the commission, only because I lived this for a while. So the commissioner is correct. The 911 system in the province of Nova Scotia is a shared system. There are 4 public safety answering positions called PSAPs. We're one. The RCMP is one. Cape Breton Regional is one. And a group called Valley Communication is one. And so those four agencies will take in 911 calls. So if Halifax is busy, there's an algorithm in the back that says, okay, it flips over to the RCMP. And then if the RCMP answers it and they need the regional fire, they transfer that back to our center for dispatch. So that's the 911 portion of that. There is a funding formula with the province in relation to that. That formula is based on the number of calls that we answer that we don't dispatch. So for instance, we don't dispatch EHS. So a 911 call to our center for ambulance, the province would pay us for that call. But they don't pay us for calls that if we were to dispatch the RCMP Halifax District, Halifax Regional Fire, or HRP. So without getting down a bit of a rabbit hole, that funding is based on a look back at the number of calls, and that number goes up and down over years. I've actually raised that issue with the Department of Emergency Management recently. It's my position that it's not the number of calls that we get, it's having the people to be in chairs to be able to answer the calls is the cost. And so that's one of the things that I'm planning on having further conversations on.
And could that work that you're doing there result in a contribution to these 8, or
So,
would you, is
But
that how that works?
But when I spoke to the original part, when I talked about the recoveries and the revenues,
Okay,
that number is included in that.
Okay.
That
Oh, I
number.
see.
That's part of
I
that
see.
number.
I see. Okay, had another question, I forget what it was. Okay, I'll come back if I think of it.
Commissioner Bezic-Escalera.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chief, for the presentation. Along the same lines as my fellow commissioners, who's trying to understand the system and I'm sorry about that. Along the same lines as the questions the other commissioners and just trying to understand the system. So you have about 80 people divided on 4 shifts, so about 20 people, or 4 watches, about 20 people per watch.
At full staffing,
At
if
full
everyone's
staffing.
in, no one's
Assuming-
off, no one's sick. No, yeah.
Assuming that.
Yeah.
And then we're looking to add 2 people per watch, so
Yes.
about 10% rise, which I think makes sense. So last month, both of you chiefs, gentlemen, you mentioned a 7% increase in call volume just for the police in the last year. So I would assume that based on the population increase, we also may have a similar increase with fire and with EMS too. So it seems to jive with that. So that makes sense to me. You may not have answers for this yet, Chief, but just to help me understand the metrics by which we would determine the need for extra people. So some of them you said are mandatory overtime. It's hard to say how often that's happening, but you're saying that
All the time.
essentially it's all the time. Do we have anything along the lines of increasing wait time per call? Like, are we just not able to keep up with the volume and people are waiting?
So a lot of that information will come in a more detailed
Oh, okay.
analysis at some point. Like, again, this was meant to stay at a
Okay, fair enough.
relative. And
Okay.
I know from your perspective, it's difficult not to get into that,
No, fair. Yeah,
you know,
my first
so-
meeting. My first budget. so
yeah, no, fair.
I have another round of questions about the sworn officers, but I'll pause now. Oh, should I go ahead? Okay. So Chief, you mentioned no new sworn officers since last year, none last year and
Yeah.
none this year. You also mentioned that we had 6 experienced police officer hires this year, as well as essentially hiring all of the 22. So I'm assuming by that we actually have empty positions that
Yeah.
we're not full at. So in terms of the budget, when we hire on these people, we hire on the new staff, it's essentially already budgeted for.
Yes.
Because, okay, so
Yes.
there's basically no increase based on.
So
simply
these,
filling
like,
where we
so
get
when I would have had the slide that I talked about, authorized strength.
Yeah.
So our authorized strength is up to 564,
564.
I think, yeah, in terms of, but that includes, so and that's just, that would be the hard vacancy bit in terms of from positions that we're still playing a bit
Yeah.
of catch up for probably, for a few years ago.
Okay.
And, so that's why I really put an emphasis, that's a hard word to say, the emphasis on when we put the class of 24 in, or 22 in back in June, I knew that was only going to take a chunk of that. And I could do another class of 20, that would take another little chunk. That's why I wanted to get to 40. That really beats down the vacancy bit. There'll still be some, because there will be some people that retire between now and then. There'll be, but that'll put us in a much better space, rather than playing catch up.
Yeah.
So much in terms of getting back to some level of, we'll always be behind. At some point in the future, I can tell you whether it's me or someone else that'll be sitting there from the chief's position, in terms of, we will be looking to increase the complement of
that, yeah.
sworn officers as well, right? It's somewhat disingenuous to sit here and ask for new positions, of which when I have vacancies that I need to already fill, right?
Yeah.
That's why I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't come with that position. I'm not saying we don't need them at something, like we will, but the reality is, it's like ordering a big plate of food that you can't eat at the end of the day, like in terms of, so I want to do this more strategically in terms of, and fiscally responsible in terms of, but at the same time manageable in terms of what it is we're trying to do. And I think, our real focused intention on, the continuous PSP classes and the support that I've gotten from the board in that regard, and with some of the other, so when we talk about, it's not just like the administrative assistant for it, but it's the background security check people that those, it's all those things that come together that allow us to do that sort of thing. Cause it's a lot of work actually to recruit
For sure.
40 bodies. Like, it's a lot of work.
I appreciate it. I guess, and from a budget perspective, that was the gist of where I was going with was, we're already budgeted for that
Yes.
sworn, so that the new hires that we get aren't really an increase in budget. It's
no.
simply living up to the budget we've got. Okay. Sounds good. I mentioned a stat, just to correct myself. I think I misspoke. So I think I said something along the lines of, last month you said a 7% increase in police call volume, and I said that didn't include fire and ambulance. So that part is correct. I think I might have misspoken on the population rise. So you showed a graph earlier that showed about 20,000 new Haligonians in the last year, over 490,000. So that's an increase of about 4%. So was it?
It was 10,000 for 2024.
And
And I think
20,000 the
19
year-
or 20 the year before that. And I think
Okay.
18 the year before that.
Yeah.
And
I guess bottom line, we've had a population increase. The actual increase in calls is greater than the rate. The rate of increase in calls is greater than the rate of increase in the population, which I thought was interesting. But also makes sense why call staff are needed.
And then there are other things that contribute, as we get more into online reporting and all that other stuff. So some of those calls that would have been historically police calls now become, computer generated calls that don't necessarily require an initial response at some point, but do require follow-up somewhere along the way. So it becomes a bit of a, it's a figures game to a certain degree, but at the end of the day, we are getting bigger and
Yeah.
busier at the end of the day. I think that's just
For
safe
sure.
to say.
Yeah, and as we lower the barrier to making a call by doing text and stuff, that's overall what we want. So sounds good. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Moore, would you like to add additional comments?
Just as an aside, one of the things that we do have coming down the pipe that I think the commission should be aware is the introduction of Next Generation 911. So that is around the corner. We're not really sure what the potential impact will be, because that will provide the ability for individuals to send video and text and all those types of things through the 911, where 911 is basically a voice-based system, with the exception of those with
TDY, yeah.
that are of the hard of hearing. So once that comes online, which will be provincial in scope, there may be an additional impact on that. So I just offer that as something else that's coming down the pipe that we need to keep an eye on. That's all.
Thank you. I wouldn't mind squeezing in a couple of questions.
You're the chair.
All right, thanks. kind of related to Commissioner Bezic-Escalar's question about numerics. Does the center track today based upon the NINA standard and measure that 90% of the calls at the center will be answered within 15 seconds and 95% will be answered within 20 seconds?
The 911 calls.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible to get, at our, some data as to how we're performing today? Are we answering calls and meeting that standard today? I would think they should be able to pull off some reports that show that. That would be useful. That would give us an idea to support your ask about what kind of stresses the resource is under today. And
I'm
then
sure I'm writing down these notes and I'm going,
I could say,
why am I writing down these notes on? Because I know the people that will actually do the work are writing down all the notes behind me. So, but it's,
Yeah.
but yes.
Okay. And another question, I'm glad that Commissioner Moore brought up the future project, the NG 911, which is a provincial initiative. How much time does your group spend on, first of all, every time there's a hang up, do you track down and do a callback to find out why that person hung up the phone?
911,
Yeah.
911 hangups are not some of the other ones, not the 5020s or the 50.
No, I get
the other
that.
calls,
for
but 911
calls.
hangups, yes, are.
And do we track how much time we spend on that each year?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because NG 911 has a significant impact on reducing the amount of callbacks required.
Okay.
So Peel Regional Police, for example, noticed they were spending, I think, 4 or 5 FTEs a month just doing callbacks, and that reduced substantially. So that's something that would be nice to know as to how much we're doing in terms of callbacks on 911 calls, because those things could be positively influenced by that. And then I guess the other question I had relates to what impact or reduction are you going do you see with these additional FTE requests on the IES overtime budget?
That's probably one of the more, I think, direct impacts in terms of, I don't think it won't eliminate the overtime budget, just because there are some, because again, at the end of the day, we're only talking 2 bodies per shift in terms of, I think we'll have a positive effect on it. It just kind of has to in terms, but again, there are certain things around, and I don't know if Greg can actually tell you what the overtime.
It's something that we were discussing. We have to come back.
Yeah, okay. But I would say in terms of just the ability to have, people in seats to get around, because I said there is a minimum staffing complement piece in there that gets that, there are some things around unintended, like people who don't show up sick, or some of those other things in terms that you really can't plan for. But I think, at the end of the day, I think that it will have a positive, it won't eliminate it, but I think we'll have a positive effect.
Commissioner Moore.
Getting some airtime here today.
911's your world, so.
Yeah, Chair, through the commission. There is a business case that I'll let the chief certainly speak to on that, but I think from my role, I think there has been other studies in relation to fire dispatch concerns. The Polmax report recalled out, the deputy mayor, we remember. So there are other pieces in there. There's certainly a staff wellness. I can't underestimate the impact on staff of mandatory overtime. You're telling people they're working their regular shifts. Oh, and by the way, we're telling you you're coming in on your days off. Like, this isn't about would you come in. This is so this will be fleshed out. But I feel strongly with this because I'll declare my bias. I was in that world for a long time, but this is a service, quite frankly, that serves the entire public safety realm across, and those individuals that are in there. So I just want to make sure that this isn't just about a policing real issue, very important policing issue, but there's a lot of other pieces between the 911 component, supporting fire operations, and even the comment that we had meetings earlier today about civilianized response to crises, and those things are going to have to intersect with IES on a go forward into a comprehensive. So I just offer that there's other pieces to this than maybe just a line item budget in the police budget. So.
Thanks. And just one last question, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's related to that. So in terms of these 2 FTEs, not have 2, it's 8, but 2 per shift, they're not necessarily going to be dedicated to police. It's
no, the
spread
model
across all
model has
operations.
them cross-pollinate across.
Yeah.
There's dispatchers, and it's a whole skill set in terms of So you may be dispatching police on Monday and on Thursday you're dispatching fire.
And will this require like additional growth in the center, additional workstations and consoles and stuff like that? Because
I think there's capacity within the center to actually
Okay.
for the expansion. And
All right.
we
okay.
just went through a desk refreshing there over the last little
Okay.
bit that was in Capitol over the last couple of years in
Yep.
terms of, but I tell you, but if you've never been there, I don't know if you have or not,
I
you should go over sometime and just
Yep.
get a sense of
Yep.
what it looks like.
It is a very stressful job for those
Yeah.
who've not seen it or lived it, they can experience
So
traumatic
I-
stress
I-
just like any
I
frontline.
can tell you that when I started, and I don't, it was like in Dartmouth, when it was busy, they sent police officers up there.
Yeah.
And when you were young, they sent up the junior guys up there, right? So I remember going up there and being scared to death about what it was like. It was not a place I wanted to be. Like at the end, answering, the 911 calls in our dispatch in terms of dealing with, it is in fact a very
Yep.
specific skill set in terms of.
And very professional. I just
Yeah.
make a comment when the Fredericton shootings happened, and then they had the subsequent, traumatic days that followed and the funerals. Members of your staff went up there to relieve
Yep.
and run that center, and it's quite remarkable that they were able to just slip into a completely new geography, set of staff, and they operated that center during that period of time. Anyway, I spoke too much. Commissioner Kent.
Thank you. I'll just follow up on that subject, which is around the complexities, the stress, the trauma, impact of traumatic events creates trauma. How well, can you just give me a sort of higher answer on this around how well are we taking care of them? How are we, what kinds of reasons would we be losing dispatchers? When I was there were some really long-standing, like been there for years, really a long time. And some of those longer-standing ones were about to retire. I know we have that you deal with that. But also some had expressed the concern around not ever dealing with and not ever having the chance to even have some health supports. I think as far back as Portapic, there's still trauma involved, and I'm not outing anyone at all, but what I want to know is make sure that are we taking good care of them. So I just like to know if there's a link between that and law and sometimes losing them as dispatchers. The other is any of this request incorporating anticipated growth of the city? Because that's here and now.
No, so
right?
yes, so through the councilor, to answer your second question first, I think in terms of, I think, going forward, each successive year will terms, I think we're bringing a report here soon around growth and the principles of growth around on resourcing in terms of, and certainly I think that will be an important part of that in terms of, as the city gets bigger and as more complex and more of the issues in terms of there will be growth across probably all sectors of HRM in terms of some particular vein. To answer the first part of your question in terms of, and it goes back to, Commissioner Mancini speaks to a lot in terms of, IES operators, can get all the same supports as our frontline police officers in terms of, EFAP and all the other supports that come with that. And in terms of, we've gotten very intentional over the last number of years because sometimes, and it wasn't intentional in terms of, something would happen and, you go to the scene to make sure everyone, hey, man, is everyone all right? And people just forget about the people and it was nothing intentional. Like it was just, and now we've gotten way better in terms of, when something happens, it's make sure we get the IES and talk to the people that actually took the calls that, spoke to the people and do all that other stuff. And in terms of, is it perfect? Probably not. Can you do better? Of course, always. But I think, I think we recognize that, they are an integral and vital part of the public safety, atmosphere and, the biosphere of what that is of public safety in terms of, and again, at the same time, in terms of, you don't necessarily have to be at a call to be exposed to the trauma that comes from it, and in terms of, in particular, when all you're getting is that stuff. So though that's a recognition in terms that they are in fact an extremely important part within that whole ecosystem around, mental wellness and engagement and all those other things.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mancini.
Well, Mr. Chair, it makes me very happy to hear so many commissioners and leading with the chief talk about member wellness. I think we've come a long way, and we still have a long ways to go, though, and we can't forget about all that serve, including our operators in 911. So, and I suspect the chief superintendent will talk about member wellness when he comes to his presentation. So that does make me happy. That's our job, right? To be asking these questions, and we need to continue to ask those questions around member wellness and make sure that those men and women that serve in all capacities are covered for all. Look at Commissioner Moore for all of our emergency services. The question was asked about the cadets and the 40 cadets and how that relates to the budget. So I understand that one now. Thank you very much. So I did a few other questions. The body worn camera, you alluded to where we are. So when's the actual launch date? You in a previous presentation you told me that. When do we actually see officers wearing cameras?
Yeah, there's still. I can't give you a definitive date because we're still.
Is it this year or coming up?
No, it will probably be in after 2025, probably in 2026, just around, because we are still in the procurement place around getting a contract in place and in terms of for good reason we leave the procurement with the procurement folks.
Yep.
In terms of, so my understanding is they're still working through some. Dotting some I's, crossing some T's.
Well, we'll see officers and police cars in 2026.
I sure hope so.
Okay.
But that's certainly the intention.
Okay. Somewhat related, but it's, yesterday the provincial government is finally put on the table the Traffic Safety Act, which we're all excited about, which we really truly hope that we're soon going to get the thumbs up of the municipality around speed radar cameras and red light cameras. What's the role, do you know, Chief, yet with regard to police and that kind of technology? And I'm asking
All right, welcome back. We're going to move on to item 10.1.2, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Halifax Regional Detachments 2026-2027 resource request presentation. Chief Superintendent Duff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Pleasure to be here today. I have with me Jeff Mitchell that the board knows very well. He's an expert in a lot of these type of things in our planning process that's gone on for some time. Just prior to getting started, I want to, in a former job, I was in charge of our support services, and that was all the specialty services within not Nova Scotia, but a different province. And our operational comm center, communication center, fell underneath my area of responsibility. I've been to IES here, and I just want to lend my support to the request and knowing what the employees within those centers go through. Our folks thank them every day. Their job they do is unbelievable, and the pressure they're under is immeasurable. So I just wanted to state my position on that. So good afternoon. This is going to be a high-level overview of Halifax Regional Detachment resource request for the 26-27 fiscal year. As you know, we have a little bit different budget process because we actually have an all-in portion. Going to go through the background, the current situation and rationale, supporting metrics, successes, priorities, and the funding request overview. So there's going to be a couple repeat slides here. We work largely in the same geographic area and work closely together in preparing for these presentations. HRM's growing rapidly. We've gone from 477,000 people in 2023 to an estimated 568 in 2033. We're in the process now of developing longer-term plans based on these estimates. HRD's very committed to supporting the Board of Police Commissioners, Commissioner of Public Safety, Halifax Regional Police, and the Department of Justice in the province. We believe in community engagement, elevating our level of community engagement and providing a modern police service holistically, recognizing that we have many partners that we need to continue to build relationships with to make longer lasting community safety impacts. So in respect to our detachments, Halifax Regional Detachment is one of the largest detachments east of the Rockies. I think there might be one or two in Alberta that recently just passed. We have 220 police officers at present, 36.5 public service employees who are our support staff. 207 of these officers are funded through Halifax Regional Municipality, 13 through the province of Nova Scotia. That's 12 from the additional officer program and an additional one superintendent position funded provincially. We're deployed to 10 locations throughout Halifax region, or Halifax Regional Municipality. Our headquarters are co-located with Halifax Regional Police. We have our three largest offices are in Cole Harbour, Lower Sackville, Tantallon. We also have offices in Musquodoboit Harbour, Sheet Harbour, North Central, North Preston, within the CID Integrated Criminal Investigative Division, court services on Northbrook. And we're in the process now of staffing our Fall River satellite office and our BLT satellite office. The map that we showed earlier, the pink areas are the geographic areas policed by the RCMP. It's a fairly large geographic region that requires some consideration of travel time in response to calls. Within Nova Scotia, the RCMP, within the H Division headquarters, we have the commanding officer, Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly. We have our criminal operations, contract policing, federal policing. Our regional, on the Atlantic region, there's a variety of corporate services, real property, fleet, our fleet management offices, and also provincially our support services, which account for our critical incident response, our underwater recovery team, our forensic identification section, and a variety of other services funded through provincially. have multiple senior level committees within the division of which I'm a part of, including the Division Executive Committee, Division Finance Committee, and developing staffing priorities throughout the province where I ensure that the HRD has a voice. Breakdown within just to depict the resources within Halifax Regional Detachment. 220 and 36.5, that's accounting for the positions added last year. And then just the depiction of the 207 paid for through the Halifax Regional Municipality and the 13 provincially funded positions. I just want to acknowledge that Haley Crichton from the Department of Justice is here, who's much more of an expert in the policing mechanism, costing mechanism within Nova Scotia than I am. So I will go through the higher view, and of course, as we get into the next budget meeting, we're going to be going into significantly more detail. So within the province of Nova Scotia, 30% is paid for by the Government of Canada for every single RCMP officer. Within Nova Scotia, 70% is paid for provincially. Within the Provincial Police Services Act, 1/3 is costed to the province and 2/3 is back to the municipality. So meaning that 1/3 is paid for provincially, even with the resources within Halifax Regional Detachment. Imagine that's likely going to generate some questions, but that's the high overview of the costing mechanism for the RCMP. Within Halifax Regional Detachment at present, the resource distribution is 51% of our officers are within our, we'll call it our patrol division, but they're the frontline watch members. Within our rural offices, such as Sheet Harbor, Musquodoboit Harbor, North Central, that accounts for 14% of our resources, 13% within CID, 8% operational support, 6% within community policing. Our street crime enforcement unit is 4% of our collective makeup. Management services team is 3%, and senior management team, which is very small, accounts for 1%. Also within our, in addition to the detachment buildings that we have housing, 6 homes, 5 of which are located in Sheet Harbor and 1 in Mosier River. Fleet, we have 93 police cars at present, 8 off-road vehicles, and 1 boat. And these are the vehicles that support all our services, frontline, administrative, and specialty services. Recent technological enhancements, body-worn cameras have been completely rolled out. Digital evidence management is being utilized and to a much greater extent based on a variety of factors, including the body-worn cameras. Managing that is proving to be fairly, we'll say challenging, but the amount of information we're managing is considerable. Blue Force tracking, which is our tracking of officers once they depart their vehicle, that is coming online now in partnership with IES, where our IES operators are going to be able to observe where any police officer is outside of the police car. Very, very important to overall tracking and officer safety. Our mobile command post is a new asset that we've utilized in a couple of areas, particularly if there's a fire, it's somewhere where we can support the members working on the ground in a variety of capacities. It has full technological capabilities to up and run anywhere, basically through satellite. And our remotely piloted aircraft system, or RPAS, we currently have 2 within Halifax Regional Detachment. They're proving to be an incredible resource. Twice this week, we've utilized them in locating missing persons in rural areas. We're looking to expand upon that. We have, I think right now is 5 general duty officers who are trained, who when they're on shift are able to have this with them and respond at any time without the need to call out specialty services. Incredibly effective tool. Just a quick map of our business processes. And really, this is just to show the collaboration and integration and focus in anything that we do collect as an organization, as Halifax Regional Detachment. We want to make sure we're working within the public safety ecosystem within HRM. And as you can see by this pictorial, collaboration is key and the basis for all our planning and future needs. So pressures and opportunities we see. Sorry, I'm not sounding as loud as I usually sound for some reason. Calls and reporting for service, intimate partner violence, homelessness, schools, and mental health are placing pressures upon our frontline officers. Enhanced community relationships, supporting the public safety strategy within HRM, evidence-driven crime reduction, and transformation related to external reports. And I want to highlight a couple of points within here. Is our monthly ComStat is a statistical analysis of where our crime is happening and where identifies our higher risk offenders, our more prolific offenders, and areas where we need to pay more attention. I believe at the last time I talked about we want to know why we're turning right when we leave the office versus turning left, because we want to take the resources we have and place them in the most effective position within the area of responsibility. This is, I believe, likely the same pictorial of the population as in the last, as in Chief McLean's presentation, just showing the population increase since 2018. And then the growth anticipated, as I mentioned, previous to 2033. Calls for service directly within the geographic area of Halifax Regional Detachment's responsibility. You'll see the last 4 years. So the yellow line is last year and the purple line is this year, trending a little bit higher in overall calls for service. And this is including our goal to reach 35% of proactive work, meaning proactive, preventative, essentially. Calls for service within the last, since 2023, have increased. 2023 was a little bit of a blip on the radar. Saw a large reduction in calls in that year during the Tantallon fires and then the flooding that followed. There's a little bit less draw on the police within there, and projected for 2025 is up over 60,000 again. Steady increase. Our key objectives were presented prior: reducing crime, bolstering community presence, enhancing service delivery, and employee wellness. Successes from 24-25. Thank you to the board. Creation of our dedicated intimate partner violence unit of 2 positions. Our North Preston biased-free file review. Revitalized ComStat meetings. Sexual assault investigation review committee. Community engagement. We held 10 community engagement sessions last year. Matter of fact, we have one tonight. So we're looking forward to being present in Lakeshore for that one. And that's to discuss our BLT community office. Interoperability enhancements between HRD, HRP. Our HRD wellness team, we have started a wellness committee within HRD. I'll mention it a little bit later, but it's being spearheaded by our Staff Sergeant Major when we added a warrant officer position to Halifax Regional Detachment. Amongst many other jobs, his is to lead the wellness and ensure the wellness of employees and to ensure that resources are available for those who need them. So for this year, which was presented and approved last year, it was 14 new regular police officer positions. the BLT office of 6, the Fall River office of 6, 1 traffic services position, and 1 community position. At present, those positions are currently in the staffing process, and I'm not sure on the exact number because there's some transfers ongoing right now on which ones have been filled, but several of them have been to date, and it is ongoing. Advertisements are out for the other ones. So we're fortunate because a new position gets advertised nationally. So there's ability to draw upon resources from other areas as well to fill a new position. The request for 26, or sorry, that should be 26, 27 is, oh, sorry. I'm going to cover the next 2 years right now. So the request for this coming fiscal year is the same ask that was presented last year as a year 2. Based on our analysis, it's still valid request, valid and supported through our statistical analysis and the metrics available to us. And that includes 6 officers to open a satellite office in Eastern Passage, to further add to our intimate partner violence unit of 2 more positions, and 1 more position to our community action response team. Year 2, 27-28 is estimated, I just want to give the early estimation, will likely be in the neighborhood of 9 positions. However, we'll determine that through a review of what that will exactly look like prior to any presentations for next year. Just a little historic picture here of the resources within Halifax Regional Detachment. Basically, from 2010 to 2023, there was very little increase. Thanks to the contribution of the board and the recommendation, we've seen some growth in frontline officers and support officers. Don't think we've quite kept up to population growth, but we're well on the way to being properly resourced. And this is just a 4-year snapshot, which is going to includes the ask for this year. The anticipate, and once we go beyond this year, we're relying upon a variety of other factors, just to sensitize everybody to, based on the statistical analysis, the metrics available right now, that over the course of the next 4 years, I'll cite year 3 as the ability to, we're hoping to develop the ability to do a resource study through Versadex system. Currently, it can be done through Pro System, but we have to develop a link to Versadex, and it's a resourcing model that considers crime types, geography, and a number of other factors. There's been a couple done in Nova Scotia recently, so this is an estimated number. And year 4, of course, when we're looking 4 years out, it's a guess based on largely population of 1 more to each watch, and then enhancing our street crime enforcement unit abilities. So for this year, we're looking to, for the 6 members, to open an Eastern Passage satellite office, planning for growth in the area. Eastern Passage is expected to grow by 20% by 2023. Private housing developments, D&D construction at the Canadian Surface Combatant Land-Based Testing Facility at Heartland Point is anticipated to increase the need for a greater community-based presence. Morris Lake housing expansion has been identified through the provincial special planning initiatives to increase housing. Eastern Passage has also become a very popular destination for recreation and tourist activities. We're relying upon the value again and the positivity we've seen of the development of the North Preston Community Office and building those community relationships. Now, as I presented further down the road, the resource ask, of course, that could be impacted by the value and what's achieved at the community-based level within these satellite offices, focused on education, partnerships, prevention. This is year 2 of the growth for the Intimate Partner Violence Unit. Plan to grow from 2 to 4. This will allow us to lend greater victim and survivor support, which is of particular importance as we gain a greater understanding of the reduced reporting at times. Greater offender management and support, perhaps where there's going to be a longer term preventative piece through education, engagement. Because really, if we could prevent this, that would be the goal. And anything we can do to, of course, address the seriousness at the time, but anything we can do to prevent it from occurring again is an incredibly sound investment. Community Action Response Team, the work that these teams have done has been really, really amazing. They address complex files, complex situations, and this is really our face in our interagency operability, particularly as it's dealing with homelessness, housing issues. They're really essentially vital to our continued collaborative approach. They work very closely with all aspects of community safety, and they've proven how incredibly effective they are in a number of different areas over the past year. And in summation, the overall ask for 9 positions based on the formula of the officer cost, which includes all the supports as well, is, of course, collective bargaining notwithstanding, as that's ongoing right now as well, and an expired contract of, I believe it was April 1st this past year that the NPF contract expired, comes to a total of estimated of $1.8 million for the 9 positions is the, basically we call it the all-in cost. So open to questions, and I saw some writing, so I'm sure there's going to be a few, and I'm going to probably have to defer to Inspector Mitchell.
We'll give you a minute or two to grab your breath because we're fortunate to have the Executive Director with Department of Justice for Public Safety and Security, if I got that correctly, Haley Crichton, and she's going to come up and just give us a little bit more detailed explanation to how the costing model flows. So, would you mind, Haley? You can come up and join in this seat over here beside Chief McLean. You can grab Chief McLean's mic. Welcome. And this has always been a mystery. It's been a mystery to me in terms of how some of these multiplications work. So I think we got an opportunity to get a really good insight now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'll preface my comments by saying that we actually have a presentation that takes approximately an hour and a half to go to explain how our billing mechanism works. That's usually how we provide this information. So I will try my best to do it in a truncated way for today. Overall, the way that we bill for the PPSA in Nova Scotia is unique to Nova Scotia. And sometimes uniqueness does not mean better. It means, in our case, more inflexible and challenging to work with. So right now we bill municipalities based on a per officer cost. And so that's when you see the budgets passed where we have a cost associated with each individual FTE that forms the estimation for the next year's budget. So if you're asking for 9 officers, the cost would be 9 times the per officer rate that the province determines. How we get to that per officer rate is the hour and a half. But at the highest level, we take the total cost of the RCMP budget. So their total cost is the provincial police for the province of Nova Scotia. We divide that number by the number of sworn police officers in Nova Scotia. And that's our per officer rate. So it's an all-in cost that includes costs associated with civilian employees, equipment, fleet, fuel for the fleet, all of that is included in that all-in cost per officer. The province currently pays the cost, the per officer cost, for all members that are assigned to what we call support services. So there are a number of specialty units under support services, and the province pays the per officer cost, the same per officer cost that you pay as municipality, but the province pays for those positions. Then we bill municipalities for the per officer rate times however many members are assigned to your municipality. And that's where you get the 1/3, 2/3. So right now we have approximately 842 sworn officers in Nova Scotia as part of the provincial police, and 200, I'm not great at math, especially when I'm under fire to do it right now. So approximately 230 positions are the ones that the province pays for, which is about 1/3 of the total number, of resources for the province. That's how much the province pays. So we pay the full per officer cost for all those 234 members, and then the rest is what we recover. So it ends up being that strange 1/3, 2/3. Again, happy to do the actual presentation to get into further detail on that at any time the board would like that. I will put a note, though, that as part of the Nova Scotia Comprehensive Policing Review, the per officer cost budget mechanism was identified as a challenge across Nova Scotia. And so we have committed as government to changing the billing mechanism that we use for municipalities currently policed by the RCMP under the PPSA. The province has also committed to being responsible for greater costs associated with policing practices across the province as well. And so this billing mechanism builds in the commitments we've made as government to improve policing services across the province. So we're still finalizing what that tool looks like, and at what point we'll introduce it. Likely have to do that in stages so that we respect the Municipal Government Act and the budget processes as well. But this is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to share the exact estimates for the next fiscal year, because of course, as you know, our provincial budget process does not align with the municipal budget process. And therefore, we do not know the per officer cost until the end of our fiscal year, because we have to take that total budget and divide it. And we don't get our final budget approvals until after the provincial budget process has proceeded and concluded.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner Kent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Haley. Every time I hear that, I think I'm getting close. And the high level actually is really helpful to us. That hour and a half can get a little mind-boggling. I've tried that. It kind of confuses the whole program. Glad to hear that you're committed to changing it, but one of my questions on that is, I guess I'm confused, and maybe is there a chance that change would happen in mid-contract? I find that a little hard to grasp, because my experience with change can often lead to an entirely different cost. And that contract that was signed based on that model, would the contract have to be opened, or would that take, for instance, if you change it, would it be effective 2030 or 2033? 32.
So I'm actually, sorry, I don't know how to respond in the municipal context.
Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to you.
Yes.
Okay.
I forget half the time, so it's all good.
So I'm actually really pleased that you asked that question. So the overarching agreement, of course, is the Provincial Police Service Agreement. That agreement with Public Safety Canada does not contemplate billing mechanism at all. And so there are different methodologies that are used across the country. Nova Scotia's per officer cost is a provincially homegrown billing mechanism that was established here. So it is not contemplated in that contract. So we do have the ability to change that billing mechanism, even though the PPSA, of course, expires 2032.
The other question that I have, very quickly, Mr. Chair, is you spoke about support positions. Now, maybe the chief can answer this too, but how many support positions are we actually utilizing right now within Halifax Division?
So support positions as in public service direct support to the detachments at the front line are the 36.5 that we've identified.
Thank you.
Provincial support could be, but however, through support services, we can access all the provincially funded specialized teams.
That are with our
Yeah,
RCMP.
like for example, emergency response team,
Yes,
the water recovery
yes.
team, which are provincially funded.
Okay, thank you.
So support's a
again.
bit of a wide sweep.
Okay, gotcha.
So just for clarity, so the specialized units, like ERT and things like that, those are paid for 100% by the province.
We pay 100% of the per officer cost for those
Ah,
members.
okay.
That's right.
So I'd love to ask this question. So slide 7, which is the classic, if we could bring that up. Every time I've seen the numbers of what the per officer cost is coming at the federal level, and then when they come down to this slide here, right here. So that's the actual, the top line is the actual true cost,
That's right.
right? And in this case here with Nova Scotia, 30% of that's paid for by the province. So if it was 300,000 for a fully loaded cost, 30% of that off, 90K, 210 down to the province, correct?
Yeah, so the feds cover 30% of the cost.
Right, so then the province pays 30% of that, of the 210.
We pay approximately 30% of the 70%,
Right,
if that makes sense.
so that would be about net 47% of the top line to the province.
That's right.
Okay, that explains it. It's up, when we've seen some of the slides, we would normally see like a $200,000 price, and that's not the actual amount. It's more like around 150, 140.
Yeah, when we look at the totality of the cost in that total budget cap,
Yeah, that sounds like
it
numbers
is-
we had seen at council. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarity. Much
Yeah.
appreciated. Any other questions for Commissioner Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Haley. This is my question is for the
No,
Chief Superintendent.
it's not
So we're doing, or you're doing Haley now?
'Cause it's on.
We ask Haley to step away. Is there any other questions for Haley around the costing model and the flow? And we would love to get into this, and maybe the hour and 10-minute version, not the hour and a half version, but anyway.
Could take a whole
Yeah.
meeting.
Thank you very much, Haley, for providing the clarity. Commissioner Mancini, back to the Chief.
Chief Superintendent, really pleased to see your creation dedicated to the Interim Partner Violence Unit. That's, we need to continue on that path and make that a priority. Also, glad to see they started the wellness team. Also, very good stuff. So I'm still trying to understand the budget, the ask here. So last year, we approved 14 positions. So those 14 positions are not all in place. Is that correct? And is that what, some of those 14 positions are the Eastern Passage positions? I'm not clear on
No.
that piece. No.
The 14 positions from last year don't include the Eastern Passage, the IPV, or
They're part of this year's ask.
that's part of this year ask.
Okay.
They were spoken of last year just as a familiarization based on the analysis that we've done of what we anticipated to ask the following year. The BLT positions, the IPV positions, the Fall River positions, they're the ones that are in the process. They're funded on I believe it was October 1st on a part year amount reflecting the budget piece. So that's in the process now of being staffed.
Okay. Okay, that clarifies things. Thank you. Interesting, when we look at year 3 and the ask of 17 full-time positions, just a reminder, that will be a election year for the municipality, so good luck with that, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately, elections aren't going to impact our needs assessment. So.
No, it's not, but there is a reality to it on a day-to-day basis. A couple of the questions I have, Mr. Chair, if I may, very quickly. The body worn camera rollout, you alluded to some of the experiences for managing it has been challenging, but the overall experiences, I suspect by now you've gone to court in different scenarios. How is the the use of the body worn cameras now on a day-to-day operational assist?
So prior to moving here into my current position, I've been experienced within the body worn camera for in excess of a year. I wish we had them 10 years ago. The evidence that they provide, the real-time evidence, is unbelievable. The officer presence is recognized in so many cases because we're often highlighted in situations that don't go exactly great. They are an unbelievable tool, and that I said, I wish we had them 10 years ago, especially to the abilities that they have now. Yeah, they are creating a bit of work, but it's work that is beneficial in the grander picture of community safety. We're accountable for our actions, and so is the public when we have the cameras on. So it's a two-way street that's clearly evident.
There was, when we have this conversation in these chambers over the years about body worn cameras, the opposition has been things of privacy and those types of things. Can you speak to that a little bit? What your experience has been?
I'm not sure that has any budget implications on us right now, but we do have processes and policy of dealing with the access to information in the Privacy Act and the retention really that we have to manage. It's no different essentially than our officer notebooks.
Right.
Or our files. It's just a different medium of the information.
I asked that question only because it'll come up when we go to the public too. Last question I have, to cover Cole Harbour, how many officers and civilians does it take to take care of Cole Harbour?
I'm going to have to look to my left here, and Cole Harbour is one of the big three, and then they also after hours cover off a couple of other areas. I'm going to try to buy some time here.
That's it. No problem.
Once the expert looks it up,
Yep.
Put them on the spot. If there's more, we can.
That's my last question. So
Okay.
we can come back if you want. Once you come back and thank you, Chief Superintendent.
We're going to move to Commissioner Kent, Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you. So there's a few things here that are of interest to me, and of course you realize that I have represented Eastern Passage for a very long time, over the years, reflection of 20 years. I'll start with the two easy ones, the two quicker ones. The intimate partner violence position, I'm certainly glad to see that there, as my colleague Tony has expressed as well, Commissioner Mancini. We can't, sadly, we still need more, sadly. And it's intimate partner violence is one of those silent plagues that often never get talked about, and yet the complexity of life and the addictions and mental health and all the different changes that I think have really happened over the last decade are just increasing those numbers. And I am glad to see that you have this here. And it's my hope that members of the commission and the council will speak to the importance of it, of making sure that we have the people in place to support and prevent. It takes a team of a village of that to do that, but certainly within the police system is a very, very important piece. So thank you for including that. The seniors piece as well, I think, again, that's another area where folks in general are not really talking about, is all of the things that are impacting our seniors in a province, and certainly in a city where our numbers of seniors are growing, have been for quite a few years, and many of them are still alone and in their homes, or alone in an apartment, or on the verge of, being supported by family and being supported by community. And all of those things that you've listed here, and I forget where I was marking it up completely. I want to actually say these things because I think if there's anyone listening, I want them to hear that. And with growth continuing to be a factor in our communities, our seniors are at risk of experiencing elder abuse, financial fraud schemes targeting seniors. There's a greater need for areas such as mental health. Our seniors are often vulnerable to exploitation and isolation, requiring protection, prevention, education, and direct assistance. I can't stress that enough. I've been working with seniors in the community for so long, and it just seems that those pressures are only growing, and they're growing in a way that it's contributing as well to the health and wellness of the entire families that are in their lives, as decisions become most important to around these risks that they are exposed to. It can escalate the conversations around, does mom or dad stay in the home? Is it time for mom or dad to go into care? Does adult protection have to become involved, which is then a situation where our policing is involved. But all of this is wrapped around risk, right? And I'm just so pleased to see that you've actually created an argument for our CART team and an expansion of the CART team to include that. I've had the benefit of, in the districts that I represent and the communities that I live, that the CART team have been very effective. And I think that that's a tremendous team and resource to be tapped into when communities are so impacted by the things that they're dealing with. So appreciate that. The last thing I'll talk about, which is, a significant ask for this round, is the community satellite office in Eastern Passage. I already spoke to the fact that I live there, but more importantly, I think I want to talk about, because of the longevity of my career, I can tell you a little history around community response, dedicated officers, and the need within that community. Eastern Passage was the first office of the community we called him the community officer. I forget his name. Derek, it's coming to mind of me. Anyway, and he operated out of the recreation center when it was called Tallahassee Recreation Center, and is now Horizon Recreation Center. Had a small office there. It was not an office that was fully dedicated and wired for police work. It was a place that officer could be found at a few hours a week, and it grew from there to be an office at Fisherman's Cove, a little more central to it, and a new officer came along, and it was meant to be about building capacity and partnerships and crime prevention, and I think, and the community embraced it, because a lot of what had to happen for that officer was volunteers to help support the work that they were doing and the connection to the leadership in the community. That then went from a small office in the main center at Fisherman's Cove to a dedicated larger office where and I was very instrumental in helping to recruit volunteers to staff that office. Although the officer was always often out and about in the community and building partnerships, obviously still gets called to service should there become some reason why they have to leave the community to go and support something in Cole Harbour or Lawrencetown or wherever the need would be. Then the community volunteers would staff the office. And oh gosh, Brian Vino was part of that. Peter Marshall, you would know that. Some of you would know that name. And I can't remember them all, but I had really great relationships with them. And then the community office ended up in the little pharmacy there, and then it drifted away. It drifted away, priorities changed, and when I came back to council this time, it was a frustrating scenario because I really, really believe in the community-based model for policing. We have proven in that community over and over that partnerships work. Community involvement, community mentoring, community partnerships, support for the police. It changes the dynamic of the faith that people have in police. It changes the dynamic of the accessibility to police, of course. So to have this now is music to my soul. I have to tell you, and I believe strongly that this community is ready for that. It will be embraced. I want to add some of the context to the 20% growth that the Morris Lake extension piece that has been approved by the province through Clayton Development. Clayton Development has projected 3,200 homes, and then at the multiplying factor is 3.3, average 3.3 people per home, would be over 10,000 more people. And when you think about that community area, that's not quite doubling the population, but it's pretty darn close. So I'm glad to see it there. I need a little bit of clarification. I'll get to my question now, Mr. Chair. I need a little clarification about the building of which you'd work out of. It could be standalone. It could be cohabitating in a satellite in a building of some form, whether it be a business and the office, or a community space and the office. But I want to know, just to understand the capital funding that would come with that. Is that all inclusive in our package that comes to the municipality, or will that come as a further cost in the capital? Will there be a capital request on that? The last part that I want to speak to is, I think you're right on in the way of best use of taxpaying dollars is to take advantage of either a new build to be part of that building envelope, or create an addition to a building envelope that also would reduce cost. Those things can sometimes, at municipalities like ours, with so many pressures on us for budgeting, could take a number of years. Like, it could be years out. But I am aware of a model that I believe they did. It might have been in the Prestons, where there was a modular building that was placed on site early, and the infrastructure was all attached. And that was a really good way to start the office, in anticipation that something was coming in the future. So I know this session is not about specifically capital, but I think it helps me, and it's a good opportunity for me to understand, how's that get paid? Because that is critical. The office is critical to the usage of and the impact of the officers being there, and the whoever's running the office. Does that make sense?
If property management made sense to me, I'd wonder what was going on. Through the chair. So there's a number of viable options. North Central is one area where there was a temporary trailer and then another modular trailer moved in. The options are available space through HRM that's leased back, because space is built into the per officer cost as well.
Yes, that's what I thought.
You'll see that in the breakdown. The option is to go through capital investment through the RCMP, in which case that's likely a longer term goal. There's temporary offices where there's the ability to have sort of a storefront while these processes are undertaken. And we're in the process now of planning for the 2 current community offices. We don't have permanent footprints there yet. We're in that process.
Okay,
They start their job in one location. They spend their shift wherever they're assigned within the community office. We're fortunate we can do everything from a car now, essentially. So an office is important because you've got that public facing piece, which is vital to these offices. But the capital piece, there's a number of possibilities.
Okay.
Ideally, we'd love to jump into a combined public safety building in any new build and be part of that, and then pay our per officer cost in the lease back.
right.
If that, did I answer the
Yeah,
question?
yes, you
Okay.
did. For me, it was understanding how do you get to where the office is real footprint between now and when the officers are ready to go online, right?
There, per officer, there's a cost.
Yes.
A space cost,
Okay.
a square meter cost per officer.
Okay,
If it's a government building, the municipality pays for it.
Yeah.
If it's a municipality, they don't pay for it. It's like a cost saving, similar to the OCC IES cost saving,
okay,
where it's not added to the overall officer cost.
okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that does help.
Commissioner Bezic-Escalor.
Thanks, Chair. Building on my fellow commissioners' questions, same level of support. I want to reiterate how important I think it is to have this community station sorted out. But thanks to Commissioner Kent for eloquently making the case there. My questions have to do with how it would roll out. So just so I can understand better, what actual policing districts would this Eastern Passage station cover?
It would cover Eastern Passage, essentially. The geographic area has not been completely defined with the
Okay.
community office. When they were not on shift, because 6 is not enough to staff 24/7, it would be similar to the North Preston model, where when they're no longer on shift, it's covered by Cole Harbour.
Okay.
Which would be the response to that. So generally, I don't want to get into too many particulars, but it's not 24 hours. It's at peak periods of time when they'd be the most effective.
Eastern Passage, Cow Bay, Woodside,
Thanks. Just having
Shearwater.
your list from last month when you talked about the crime distribution by policing district, it would have helped me to understand kind of what the demand is for the station. But notwithstanding that the community should have one, it helps me understand, like, should the staffing be the same? Should we anticipate more staffing in one station versus another? But from what you just said, Chief, the 6 people wouldn't be there 24/7, but they'd be there part-time, and then there'd be cross coverage from other stations anyway, essentially. So,
Absolutely.
okay, that makes sense to me. My next questions had to do with the IPV. So it sounds like you're doubling the team, which is great. One of the early questions I had in my first meeting here was when Dolly Mosier brought up the Domestic Violence Offender Navigator Program, which is within HRP only. And I had asked a question whether a similar thing existed within HRD. It's from what you were describing on the screen, it sounds like this might be that sort of thing addressing that gap. Is that correct? Or
Through the chair to the commissioner, it is, if the capacity is there to do that, because it's going to initially be victim-based.
Okay.
Hopefully, because then we start getting into the preventative piece. And if we don't have the capacity with the current resource ask to get into the preventative piece, that'll generate another resource ask.
Okay, perfect. Makes sense. That would be the priority for sure. Thanks. Again, fully appreciate that is part of the priorities that you have here. My last question was about the community, last 2 questions about the community action response team. So 1 additional person. How many do you have currently on the cart?
Currently within HRD, we have 16.
Okay. And do they cover all areas, or would this new ad be in a specific area?
They do, but they're divided amongst the largest
Policing
3
districts.
detachments.
Okay.
But they're
They're available
completely
for anywhere.
interfunctional within all HR.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thank you very much. That helps. Thank you.
Commissioner Hinch.
Well, the
commissioner just asked my questions. That's okay. That's okay. But the one thing that I would like to know is, being the largest, one of the largest RCMP detachments. So I hear a lot about the police academy and all, and what goes on there. Do you guys do the exact same thing, or do you guys recruit from somewhere else? Like, where's your recruitment come? How do you do that?
In respect to, through the chair to the commissioner, in respect, we recruit across Canada.
Across Canada?
Across Canada. Right now, I can say that we have the most applicants in the queue of recruits that we've ever had in our history. We're fortunate because Nova Scotia is a province that people want to come to.
Mhm.
And it's, yeah, across Canada.
So do they have to like, so they asked to come to Halifax or Nova Scotia?
At present, they're given, they identify a division,
Okay,
which used to be top three, and it could go that way depending on vacancies across the country.
okay,
It's a bit of a complex process. All training is done in Regina unless it's an experienced police officer who's switching forces.
okay. So they're not evenly divided or anything, because being one of the largest. Being one of the largest, I mean,
We're one of the largest detachments, but our vacancy rate is comparatively speaking, is very strong. We don't have a high vacancy rate.
okay,
Manitoba, sorry. Nova Scotia is one of the mid-sized divisions, however, in the country.
okay. All right, thank you.
I'm wondering if the inspector managed to find the answer around Cole Harbour. Chief Superintendent.
Through the commission, or through the chair to the commissioner, 7 to 8 frontline resources per shift in Cole Harbour. That is the watch members. That is supplemented by the 5 officers in North Preston. Of course, they're on a variety of shifts there. And then the support teams who are broken down with a portion located within Cole Harbour. However, completely interchangeable, all functioning on the same comms systems.
Understood. And just to clarify, the 9 FTEs you're going to be asking for, the dollar amount was 1.8 million, is that correct?
1.84 million, given the current costing
Right,
mechanism.
understand, yeah.
And collective bargaining aside, there's going to probably, I would take an estimate that there's going to be a couple of % within the salary dollars and then the extra duty costs associated. But that's yet to be determined. Trying to give the best known number.
I understand. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
May I ask a couple of questions? Just for some clarity then. So for 6 resources with a 4-watch system, correct?
Mr. Chair, that would be a standalone community office similar to Preston.
Yeah.
They would be operating independently, community-based, and then when not on shift or when supplementation was required, depending on urgency of call, would be supplemented by the watch system that's occurring based out of Cole Harbour.
So for the 6 resources assigned to the office, what is the coverage area, hours, days? How does that roughly work? Just high-level perspective. If it's not following the 4-watch system, because I was trying to do the math of 1.5 resources per shift, and that's.
It's roughly
How do you do
16
that?
hours per day.
Pardon me?
16 hours per day is the rough estimate.
Of
'cause-
coverage,
Yes,
which would either be 1 or 2 resources.
it would be a minimum of 2
Two.
based on officer safety requirements.
Is that 7 days
okay.
a week?
And that includes that 7 days a week.
Right. Okay. The IPV resources, are those integrated with HRP's investments in IP resources, or are those 2 completely separate operating groups?
They are not integrated, but they're connected, if that makes any sense. They know each
So
other.
share information, they know each
Yeah.
other, but they do work different files.
And then within the greater province, the other districts, Northeast Nova and Southwest Nova, have now developed similar. They've now have just recently put 2 IPV positions in place based on the success they're seeing from
Okay.
within.
I'm wondering if I know last year we looked at and received some call for service data around the individual communities that are going to be impacted by the 6-person request and the surrounding areas that are going to benefit from, like Cow Bay. Could we see another snapshot of that again this year where we see the call for service details, just so we can get some context of the growth that'll be served by the office?
On October 29th, you will have that
Oh, okay.
snapshot.
Sure. Great. Thank you. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Okay. Barring none, I think we're done with that. We're going to move on, and I think we're going to close things down. So no added items, no in-camera component. Any notices of motion? Barring no notices of motion, our next meeting is next Wednesday, which is a regular meeting. There won't be any budget items discussed. The next item will be October the 6th, which is the public consultation piece. And then it won't be revisited until October 29th. All right. Call for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.